In our politics lead today, Monday starts a pivotal and quite consequential week for the Biden administration's domestic agenda. Confirmation hearings are set to begin for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, Biden's pick to replace the retiring Justice Breyer on the U.S. Supreme Court. Republicans are sharpening their lines of attack against the hearings, attempting to drum up controversy over past rulings, including her handling of sex crimes during her time as a judge. Let's discuss with our analysts and contributors. And Ashley, let me start with you because Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, he began pushing this week the suggestion that Judge Jackson, in his view, is overly sympathetic to sex offenders in her judicial rulings. He said she has, quote, a pattern of letting child porn offenders off the hook. Now, our CNN team reviewed what he was saying, and that shows that Jackson mostly followed the common judicial sentencing practices in these kind of cases, and that Hawley seems to have taken some of her comments out of context. So what do you think this challenge does to her nomination? Is Hawley going to find supporters for what he's saying about her?
I don't know many people that would think that a Supreme Court nominee would actually be sympathetic to sex offenders and that the president would actually nominate someone like that, because Judge Jackson is not sympathetic to sex offenders. She is so qualified that he's throwing spaghetti at the wall, and it's honestly typical Josh Hawley. I think he will be very performative during the hearing, as he usually is, to get a lot of screen time, but I don't think it will actually stick. I'm not sure if she will get bipartisan support, but I think she is, even during some of the Obama nominations, one of the most qualified candidates that could potentially get some Republican support, and she should. And we don't expect Josh Hawley, but I would just dismiss this claim because she's followed the law in many of her cases, not just in this issue.
The question is certainly not whether or not she's followed the law. He brings up an interesting aspect of her judicial philosophy, right? Many are saying soft on crime, but the truth is, with her opinions and many of her comments and a lot of her actions, she has suggested and represented the idea of downward departures for pedophiles, of all things. And
what is that? What do you mean downward departures?
With regard to the sentencing guidelines, there's a range you can sentence someone to when you're a sex crime offender or pedophile.
Right, let's say it's 7 to 10 years, and she
could go seek a downward departure closer to 7 as opposed to 10, which is within her duty and her obligation to do so, but there's a question about seeking a downward departure for such criminals. Also, with regard to her support for abortions, pro-abortion issues, and protecting the buffer zones at abortion clinics and representing Gitmo detainees. These are valid parts of her judicial record that are subject to scrutiny and a confirmation.
So our review of our people who cover the court and everything looked at this really carefully and said that a review of what she had done showed that she followed the sentencing guidelines, which people agreed need to be looked at generally. And so she didn't do anything out of the ordinary. And I think this is a question of throwing the spaghetti against the wall. Do you just want to make a huge deal about how she's soft? You know, she's soft on crime, because don't forget, you have 4 potential Republican presidential candidates sitting on this committee. And the soft on crime for the Democrats seems to be something they're going to use all over. It's something Donald Trump liked to use. It's something Republicans like to use. And if they can portray her as somebody, oh, she represented, detainees at Gitmo. Well, can you never have anyone who is a public defender assigned a client represent someone?
Well, and the other thing, when the White House was asked about this, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, suggested that Hawley has no ground to talk on, to speak on this, because he refused to say whether he would vote for Roy Moore, who was the Republican Senate candidate from Alabama, who had been accused of sexually harassing underage girls. I don't know that really is responsive. It's certainly politically responsive, but if one is engaging in the kind of scrutiny of somebody's record, they're going to have more of a response, I think.
Right, and I think what this sort of out of the blue comments by what Senator Josh Hawley has indicated it shows just what Judge Jackson is in for in her confirmation hearing, to the extent that there has been kind of one common thread that Senate Republicans have discussed when it comes to Judge Jackson. It is the issue of crime. Several Republicans have pointed to her service as a federal public defender, like we said, her representation of Gitmo detainees. I will point out, though, I talked to Senator John Kennedy, one of the Republicans on that committee. He told me he's actually very uncomfortable with those attacks because he says attorneys have always represented people that we may not even like, like that. But that is our job, to provide our clients counsel. So there is some hesitation with Republicans on that committee. But
And they haven't had a defender on the court since Thurgood Marshall.
right, and she would actually be the first federal public defender on the court, so she's making a little bit of history there should she be confirmed. So I think that the White House, Judge Jackson, will take the weekend and take through Monday when the confirmation hearing starts to really prepare for the answers, because we know obviously Josh Hawley will bring it up. An aide to Senator Marsha Blackburn tells me she will bring it up. Senator Mike Lee has indicated that he would raise this issue as well, and I'm told that all the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee are very well aware of this research and could certainly bring it up themselves.
And I think what we will see is that McConnell has really, I think, set the table for what we will expect to see: a confirmation process of dignity and respect due to her impeccable judicial record, and she has a tremendous record of accomplishments professionally and personally. And I don't expect to see any way, shape, or form character assassinations like we've seen in the past. This will be about her record, and scrutinizing her judicial record is valid for a lifetime appointment.
Well, I just think, conservatives and and liberals have supported her. The Fraternal Order of Police usually don't endorse people who are technically soft on crime, and they were out the gate, I think, on the second day of her nomination. The major city chiefs, the sheriffs, the Cato Institute came out today in support of Judge Jackson. I mean, she definitely has, you don't have to agree with her on all the issues, but her integrity on how she applies the law, I think, is pretty airtight.
And Mitch McConnell came out and said, look, she's probably going to get confirmed. You need just 51 votes. So he said it. And so the question is, how far do Republicans want to go? Do they all agree how far they want to go? The public right now is focused on a lot of other things, including, of course, Ukraine, including their pocketbooks. Mm-hmm. They're worried about their future. They're worried about their families. And so the question is, how do Republicans do this? I don't think they all agree on what their strategy ought to be.
And I can tell you, definitely Republicans do not agree on how far they should go. But I think broadly Republicans have acknowledged that they're most likely going to lose the confirmation battle. Mm-hmm. Obviously, barring some major catastrophe on the White House's end, she will be confirmed most likely in early April.
In a bipartisan way, right?
Likely, yeah. Susan Collins has voted for every Supreme Court justice except for one, so she really wants to get to yes, if possible. But for some Republicans, it's all about kind of making the political case, sort of as one advisor told me, right now it's a political win for Democrats. They want to make it at least a political wash.
All right, thanks to all. Have a great weekend.